Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. My name is Brandon, and I need your advice on something that's been eating at me. I've gone over it in my head 100 times, try to make sense of it, but I keep ending up in the same place, stuck. I don't know if I'm overthinking or being too sensitive. And that's why I'm here telling you this. Because one of you has been through something similar, or you'll hear this and know exactly what I should do. Now, before I get into the dilemma, you need to hear the whole story from the beginning. Because if you've ever been in a relationship, you know that sometimes it's not about the one thing that happens. It's about what it reveals. So sit back, listen, and when it's over, let me know what you think. Because I'll be reading the comments, and I need to know, am I making a big deal out of nothing? Or is this the kind of thing that only gets worse? Carolyn and I go way back. We've known each other since high school, practically forever. But back then, we weren't a couple. We were just two kids who ended up in the same classes and crossed paths in the same hallways. I wouldn't say we were best friends, but we got along well. I remember thinking she was out of my league back then. We lost touch after graduation. Life happens. I had no reason to think I'd ever see her again, let alone end up engaged to her. But life is funny like that. We both ended up at the same college, and that's where things really started. We first started bumping into each other in the library and catching up in bits and pieces. Before I knew it, we were spending time together, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. I can't even pinpoint the exact moment when we stopped being just old classmates and started seeing each other differently. We started dating, and it just felt easy. Maybe it was because we already knew so much about each other, or were just at a point in our lives where we wanted something real. Whatever it was, it worked. Our relationship was smooth. I don't mean perfect, no relationship is, but it was steady. Fast forward a few years after college, and things were still going strong. We weren't just two people dating anymore. We got to the point where I proposed, and she said yes. Just like that, we were planning a wedding. It felt like the natural next step, like everything we had built was leading us here. She was the one. I had no doubts about that. But looking back now, I wonder if maybe I should have paid more attention to the little things. Because sometimes it's not the big moments that tell you who a person really is, it's the small ones. For me, marriage isn't just some next step in life. It's not just about having a big wedding or checking off a box, because that's what people expect when you hit a certain age. No, for me, marriage is personal. It's something I've thought about for years and something I wish to get right from the start, because I know what it looks like when it all falls apart. I grew up in a house where love didn't last. My parents started off happy, at least that's what I've been told. But by the time I was old enough to understand what was happening, all I saw were the fights, the distance, the resentment that no one wanted to acknowledge. I remember lying in bed at night, hearing my mom and dad arguing through the walls, voices getting sharper, angrier. And then the silence after, which somehow felt even worse. Because that's when I knew they weren't just mad. They were done. Eventually, they split. My dad packed his things and left, and my mom did her best to hold everything together. But even though the fighting stopped, the damage was already done. It shaped the way I saw relationships. I watched my mom struggle alone, and I saw how my dad drifted further away. And from all of that, I made myself a promise. If I ever got married, it wouldn't be like that. I wouldn't let it turn into something ugly and painful. I'd make sure my marriage was different, that it lasted. That's why being with Carolyn felt like such a perfect fit. She came from the kind of home I always wished I had. Her parents had been together for decades, and they weren't just coexisting under the same roof. They seemed happy. They made decisions as a team, and they genuinely liked each other. When I first started coming around, they welcomed me like I was already part of the family. There was never any weird tension in the air, no unspoken resentments hanging over the dinner table. It was just easy. Carolyn was the same way. She understood my fears about marriage and wanted the same thing I did, a real, lasting partnership, not just something that would hold together for a few years before crumbling under the weight of unspoken problems. With her, I felt like I had a shot at the kind of love I'd always wanted. But now, I'm starting to wonder, And that's why I need to tell you what happened. Because after that night at the bar, I'm not sure if the foundation I thought we had is as solid as I believed. I remember that night so clearly. It was supposed to be just a regular hangout, just a way to take a break from all the wedding planning stress. Carolyn and I had been deep in it for weeks, picking out venues, arguing over guest lists, and trying to make sure everything was perfect. So when our friends suggested meeting up at the bar for drinks, it felt like a good chance to unwind. Just a few hours to relax, laugh, and forget about all the planning details for a while. The place was packed, but not too loud, just the right amount of noise to make it feel lively. The music was playing, people were talking over each other, and the drinks were flowing. Our group had taken over one of those long, high-top tables near the back, where everyone could squeeze in and still hear the conversation. It felt good, easy, comfortable. I had my arm draped over the back of Carolyn's chair, and she was leaning into me slightly, relaxed, sipping on her cocktail. The conversation jumped from one topic to another. Work stories, random jokes, the usual bar talk. Then, as it always does when you have couples in the group, the topic eventually shifted to relationships. Jordan, one of my closest friends, started telling us about a fight he had with his girlfriend. Apparently, he had forgotten their anniversary, and she had been furious. The way he told it, with exaggerated hand gestures and mock panic in his voice, had the whole table laughing. "I mean, come on," Jordan said, shaking his head. "I love the girl, but it was our dating anniversary. We've been together 3 years. I thought we were past celebrating every single one." The table erupted into laughter. Even Carolyn chuckled, shaking her head. Jordan kept going, playing up the drama. She wouldn't let it go for days. Said it proved I didn't care about our relationship. Man, I took her out to dinner the next night, got her flowers, made a whole thing of it, but nope. Damage was done. And then, without really thinking, I turned to Carolyn and said, "Sounds familiar, huh?" I nudged her playfully, still smiling. At least Jordan forgot a big date. "You got mad at me for not remembering what color dress you wore last weekend." It was supposed to be a light joke, the kind of thing couples say to each other all the time. I expected her to laugh it off or hit me with a playful "shut up." That's how it always went. But the second the words left my mouth, I noticed her face changed and her smile was gone. Just like that. Before I even fully understood what was happening, she lashed out, loudly. "Oh, you, Brandon. You're such an holy." I was shocked. The bar wasn't exactly quiet, but somehow, her voice cut through the noise, making heads turn from nearby tables. I barely had time to react before she kept going, her words pouring out fast and heated like she had been holding them in for a while. "You're actually worse than Jordan, you know that? At least he forgets important stuff like anniversaries. You just don't pay attention at all. Ever. You never remember details, you're always clumsy with things, and you act like it's no big deal." Her eyes flashed with frustration, her tone laced with something deeper than just irritation. It felt personal, like this had been bubbling under the surface, waiting for a moment to explode. The energy around us shifted instantly. The laughter and casual conversation at our table died mid-sentence. No one knew where to look. Jordan, who had been playfully defending himself just a moment ago, stared down at his drink. Mark cleared his throat awkwardly, and his girlfriend, Lisa, glanced between us with wide eyes, as if waiting for me to respond. But I couldn't. I was caught between shock and humiliation. I wasn't sure what stunned me more, the fact that she snapped so aggressively, or the things she actually said. Was this really just about a joke, or had she been sitting on these feelings for a long time? For a second, she didn't seem to care that she was making a scene. She soon realized that she had just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. The anger that had fueled her outburst drained from her expression, replaced by regret and embarrassment. Her shoulders, which had been tense, suddenly dropped slightly, almost as if she wanted to take the words back, but didn't know how. She reached for my arm. Her voice came softer this time, almost pleading. "Calm down, I love you." This statement felt more like a quick patch-up job, something to smooth over the damage without actually addressing it. A way to hit the reset button and pretend the last 30 seconds hadn't just happened. But that wasn't how this worked. Some things, one said, just sit there. heavy, unmovable, and everyone at the table felt it. For a few awkward seconds that felt like hours, no one knew what to do. The conversation had been loud and carefree just a moment ago, but now it was tainted. It was obvious. The vibe had completely shifted. And me? I hadn't expected a reaction like that. The joke wasn't meant to be deep. I was unsettled, because words like that don't just come out of nowhere. No matter how much I wanted to shake it off and pretend like nothing happened, I couldn't. The entire group felt it. The energy of the night had been sucked dry, leaving behind nothing but strained smiles and half-hearted attempts to move on. The fun was over, even if no one wanted to admit it yet. One by one, people started making excuses to leave. I didn't say much as we walked out of the bar. Carolyn wasn't saying much either. Normally, after a night like this, we'd linger for a bit. Not this time. When it was finally time to say goodnight, I hesitated. I wanted to pretend like it didn't bother me. But it did. And as much as Carolyn tried to play it cool, I could tell she felt it, too. I watched her walk to her car and drive off. The next morning, I woke up replaying everything. I didn't know what to make of it. Later, my phone rang. It was Carolyn's, and for a second, I debated letting it go to voicemail. But avoiding her wouldn't fix anything. I answered. "Hey," she said. "I just wanted to call and, apologize." I didn't say anything right away, just waited for her to continue. "I had too much to drink," she went on. "I wasn't thinking straight. I didn't mean any of that, Brandon. You know I love you. I just got carried away." I wanted to believe her. We all know alcohol can bring out things we don't mean to say. People get emotional, say dumb things, and act out of character. I've seen it happen plenty of times. But then, what if alcohol doesn't just make people say things they don't mean? What if it makes them say things they've been holding back? What if it strips away the filter and shows what's really underneath? That's what scared me. Because if that was how Carolyn truly saw me, someone she could curse at, humiliate, tear down in front of our friends, then what would happen when we were married? What happens when it's not just one drunken night, but a real argument, in real life, in our home? Will she talk to me like that then? Will she get mean, dismissive, and cruel? I've seen marriages fall apart before. I know how it starts. Little things add up. A harsh word here, a dismissive comment there, and before you know it, the respect is gone. The love might still be there, but it's buried under resentment, and once that happens, it's only a matter of time before everything falls apart. I grew up in that kind of house. I watched my parents go from loving each other to barely being able to stand in the same room. And I swore I'd never let that happen to me. But now here I was, engaged to the woman I loved, wondering if I was ignoring a red flag. And if it was a warning, was I already too deep to walk away? So, I need to ask you all, has anyone been through something like this? Have you ever seen a side of someone you love that made you stop and wonder if you really knew them at all? How did you handle it? Am I overthinking this, or is this something I should take seriously? I don't have all the answers right now, but maybe some of you do. I'll be reading the comments, so let me know what you think. Tell me, what would you do if you were in my shoes?